Well, we began the service today with the hymn "Morning Has Broken," and I think it's very appropriate today on New Year's Day. It's the first day of a brand new season. It's a chance, I think, for a lot of people for a brand new start. It's a time for new leadership, and there's some excitement and there's also some anxiety as we say goodbye to an old regime and we welcome in a new era. But it's also a season which invites choices. And for some folks, they may say, well, do I stay where I am personally, where I'm finding myself in my life? Or do I move on to a place that offers a different kind of opportunity? Or do I just settle in? Let me just settle down, hunker down where I am right now, where I've been living, because it's sort of comfortable. It's the place I'm familiar with. So I think many folks, maybe most of us in here, have pondered these kinds of transitional questions normally around this time of the year. So now as you listen to me begin the message today with that sort of new beginning dialogue, you might be thinking I was talking about our new presidential leadership. I wasn't. You might think I was talking about the issues that are going to represent 2017. I wasn't doing that either. If you thought about that as you heard me speaking, you're about 2,000 years off, and I'll prove it to you. If you would, as I was actually trying to portray to you Matthew's description of first century life for Joseph and for Mary. So now turn to Matthew chapter 2, verses 19 through 23. Here it is. It's a new season, and with it, new decisions, new possibilities. When Herod died, an angel of the Lord suddenly appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, and he said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were seeking the child's life are dead." Then Joseph got up and he took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee. There he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled. He will be called a Nazarene. May God bless the reading and the hearing of God's holy word. Many times when I've been traveling, and I've done a lot of travels, I know we have some folks in here that travel very frequently. I've been in many places in the world, and every time I go away, if it's for any length of period of time, mostly what happens to me is sooner or later, especially when I'm getting near to the end of my journey, I start getting this longing. I guess you could call it homesickness, but what it really is, what I want to do is go home. I just want to go home. I want to be around my house. I want to be around my things and be around my family, my familiar life. And maybe you felt that way too. Joseph and Mary, they just wanted to go home. They'd been away for a long time. It'd been a long journey, and it was a difficult journey. Remember, they're off to Bethlehem to take the census while Mary is in the last days of her pregnancy. And then there's the angel announcement of the birth, and the baby comes, and then there's a warning, there's danger, you need to leave by another way. So many things have been going on in their lives, and there have been movements and travels and disruptions. And now, here's what Mary and Joseph and this little baby are stepping into. Now they find it's a brand new era. Sound familiar? It's a brand new era. It's brand new leadership because Herod has died. Remember, Herod is the one who gets tagged with that idea of massacre of the innocents, killing those male children to try to stop this new king from coming into power. So Herod has died. New leadership, right? Archelaus comes in. Archelaus is ruling over Judea. But it didn't matter. They were still afraid. And Joseph has a dream. And in this dream, he gets a warning saying, you you need to leave. You need to go. So instead of going wherever they had set their mind on raising their family, here's what they do. They head to Galilee. Now, Galilee, we think, is this very famous place because we've heard about it so much. But Galilee is really seen as a remote, kind of out of the way, far away place, far away from the epicenter of Judaism in Jerusalem. Very different kind of life. And it was just starting out for them. They were just getting going. And they were a family. You remember what it was like those first days when you first became a family? Now we're a family and we do these things together. And all of that happened, and they had to pick it all up, pack everything up, start all over again. Yet again, another new town, another new beginning. And of all places, they go to Nazareth. You know, the only thing the Bible has to say about that Nazarene village, the only thing it says is Nathanael's sarcastic question, and that's in John, first chapter of John. Whether it was even possible, could it even be possible for anything or anyone good to come out of that village? Remember that statement? Can anything good come from Nazareth? We don't know a whole lot about that, except we hear it at Christmas time. We hear that Christmas story. Nazareth was about 16 miles southwest of the Sea of Galilee. It wasn't really on the coast. It wasn't near the Mediterranean Sea. It wasn't on many of the big trade routes. And you might see a picture of this appear up on the screen. It's a little, tiny, sleepy village of Nazareth. And basically, Nazareth is known for one thing and one thing only. What is it? It's the hometown of Jesus. That's why we know about Nazareth. It's the place that Jesus would grow up. He spent his life there, early life, growing up. And it's also that town we hear about that is very skeptical about him. Right nearby Nazareth is a big rock outcropping. That's that point of, they call it the Mount of Precipice, where the townspeople carry Jesus out and they try to throw him off as an adult. So it's an interesting little village. James F. Strange, he's an American archaeologist, and he notes this about this little town of Nazareth. He said, it's not mentioned in any of the Jewish sources. Think about this. Nazareth, that village, isn't mentioned in any of the Jewish sources until the 3rd century. 300 years go by before it shows up anywhere. And he says the likelihood, the reason this is the case, is because it's just the place lacks prominence. It lacks prominence in Galilee and in Judea. And he calculates that the population of Nazareth around that time is probably about only 450 people. So it's a tiny, tiny little community. And although it was a small community, it was close to one large city. It was close to the metropolitan centers of Tiberias and Sepphoris. Now, Sepphoris, actually, on our trip to Israel, we visited this, and you can actually see the amphitheater. The ruins of it are still there. Sepphoris is this, it's this beautiful Greek city. Sepphoris, luxurious Greek-style architecture there. It was the capital of Herod Antipas. And unlike the prominent Gentile cities like this, Nazareth was a Jewish enclave, but it was relatively poor and overpopulated. And there was a scarcity of natural resources, such as even fertile soil to grow crops. So here's the situation. In situations like these, when you have a town, a very small town, the territory doesn't offer a whole lot, there's a great deal of disease, maybe some poverty. But Nazareth, although small and a bit impoverished, it wasn't completely destitute. But even still, the village seems to be held in contempt, and you hear this in the scriptures. It's held in contempt by first century folk. Maybe it's just because it was so nondescript. It's just a little dot on the map. very much overshadowed by Sepphoris. And I think there's another picture of Sepphoris up here. There you go. This is near Nazareth. This is this beautifully designed Greek city on the top of a hill. This is a mosaic on the floor. All the floors in Sepphoris had mosaics, just like that one. That was actually in Sepphoris. So what a difference. What a juxtaposition. Now, you can see why Nazareth would be maybe easily despised in the eyes of others. This is, I think, back in the 40s, or it might even be 1848, I think. That's Nazareth, what it looks like just a little over 100 years ago. So you can see why it would be easily despised in the eyes of other folks. It's in the backwoods. It's out in the sticks, little tiny village. But you can see the other Jews in these bigger cities are going, wow, what a little bit uneducated people, not very sophisticated. Nazarenes growing up in that city, that little village, would have been judged as ignorant at best, some would say, and simple-minded sinners at worst. Now, I went to a little elementary school up in Jacksonville. It was called San Jose Elementary, and in that school, lots of different kind of folks, but there were some particular folks that you could always pick out. They lived behind the school. It was a quite blighted area, and the area was called Larson. And you could always pick out the kids that lived in Larson. Often they would come in disheveled, dirty, clothes worn, maybe ripped, did not speak well, clearly had trouble. They had trouble even learning. And when I look back and I think of those kids, I wonder where they are today. But if you were from Larson, it was seen as you didn't want to be from that place. That's Nazareth. You didn't want to be from that place. So I hope now I've given you a little bit of an idea why Nathanael was so demeaning of the place, of this little village. He was just doing what everybody else was doing. He was judging the situation based upon, I guess, maybe stereotypical ideas of the people or the geography, the place. There was a prejudice against Nazareth. And it seems like if you were from that place, you just couldn't get a break. You couldn't get a break in Nazareth. So the question for us in today's lection is just that. Of all places, Joseph and Mary and this little infant baby, they go to Nazareth. So can Joseph and Mary and even this newborn infant baby Jesus, can they get a break in Nazareth? Now, everybody needs a break sooner or later. And maybe you've lived in a Nazareth along the way. I think there's been times in my life I felt like I was in that kind of a place, and I just needed a bit of a break. You feel like that occasionally? But the moment, maybe the time or the place, it just didn't allow for you to get that break. So what do? What did you do? Did you pick up? Did you move on? Push through? Struggle through? Did you trust through that situation? As Christians, that's what we're called to do. Trust. The people of God trusted through those situations because our God is a God of breaks. He loves to give breaks. Even if you're living in a Nazareth of your own. So I want to tell you the story about someone who lived a Nazareth experience. There was a once-be writer who had an idea for a book. But as soon as the person began to put the words down in the book, everything came to kind of a screeching halt. Her mother died suddenly. It was very devastating to her, and she wasn't able to write. She was so overcome with grief and depression, which meant she basically got very little done in that time. So in the hopes of maybe digging out of the grief, the author set out for a year, went to Portugal to teach English to the children in Portugal. So the goal of the trip was venturing abroad was to get away from troubles, and maybe you've done that before. Just let's change of scenery, get away from troubles. More importantly, it was going to give her some time maybe to continue working on the book. And the hope was to have, at the end of that time, to have the book finished and then be able to go back home. Move back home to that comfortable place. Never staple your notes together in worship. It really breaks the whole theme and mood you have going. You know, things don't always go as planned, even in our lives. Sometimes you staple your notes together. This was the case for her. Things didn't go as planned. Not only now was there no progress on the book, while she was there, she got married. She had a child. That didn't go well, and so she returns home with a newborn baby daughter. It seemed nothing good was coming out of her life. No job, no finished product. Now she has 2 mouths to feed. So the author hits, you know what that's called, rock bottom. She moved into Nazareth. She needed a break. But she moved into the very place where it seemed maybe those things don't come along very often. So she's still struggling with depression. She's raising a child. She's living off of very meager means, unemployment benefits. And she began to work a little bit more on the book. And there were lots and lots of setbacks. But she found a bit of solace, in the writing. Maybe it was a bit cathartic for her. Finally, she produced 3 chapters ready to go. She sends them off to the publisher. Publisher quickly passes on the project, in essence saying, can anything good come from Nazareth? This is not good stuff. She sends it off to another publisher. Same thing. No. Not from Nazareth. Not good work. Even with a mailbox began to fill up with rejection letters, she didn't stop. She continued to push through. In the author's own words, she said, failure meant a stripping away of the inessential. I stopped pretending to myself that I was anything other than what I was, and I began to direct all my energies into finishing the only work that mattered to me. So after sending the manuscript to 12 different publishers and getting rejected by every single one, you can imagine her confidence is just at the very lowest point. Finally, one editor received her manuscript and sat down to read it. And so did the editor's 8-year-old daughter. And the little girl loved the opening chapters, and she begged to read more. She wanted the whole thing. And it was that made the publisher go ahead and agree to publish the novel, but left the author with this warning: nothing very good ever comes out of Nazareth. Actually, he said, get a day job, because you won't make any money writing children's books. Nothing good's going to come out of this. However, once Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was published, she proved everyone wrong, because this is the story of J.K. Rowling. She went from being a jobless single mother living off unemployment benefits to one of the best-selling authors of all time. And if you're familiar with all the Harry Potter books and all the movies, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it didn't happen overnight. She faced rejection along the way and constantly had to strive for that success. She worked very hard, didn't give up, pushed through before anyone took a notice of her. And here's another quote I think that's interesting for us today, especially on a new day of a new year. It's impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might not as well lived at all, in that case, you fail by default. Can you get a break in Nazareth? That's the question today. Wherever you find that place, whatever you name it, can you get a break there from God? The answer, I would think, is automatic, but today, January 1, 2017, I think it's important to say it again. Jesus made it possible. Jesus made it possible for good things to come out of Nazareth. He's the poster boy, right? The poster child. He's the break maker, the break giver. So whatever 2017 means for you and I, even if you find that along the way you've moved into Nazareth of your own, a type of Nazareth, or you feel like you're living a Nazareth kind of life, it doesn't make any difference. God still calls us, calls to us, leads us out. You know, there's one thing I didn't tell you about Nazareth. Even with all those stereotypical labels, the people of Nazareth, it was reported, were physically robust. You can imagine, if the place wasn't that great and they made a go of it, they must have had some fortitude, right? They were robust, it said, strong-minded, practical, respectful of tradition, and loyal to the family. So, counter to what history says about Nazareth, good things do come out of that city. And good things can come out of our lives, even if we find we're living in that context. For it happens for all those that are willing to trust God. Joseph, Mary, they trusted God. Took them to a little town, a little backwater, they took them to Larson. And yet, now it's one of the most famous cities in the world because of Jesus. Something amazing came out of Nazareth. And if God can do that for that family, in that place, in this 2017, I think He can do it for us if we're willing to trust, to listen, and to follow. Happy New Year. Amen.